The sun set that first day. Beautiful orange rays filling the sky above the trees. I watched as darkness fell, and the woods came alive with the night creatures. In that first day, the first few days really, my mind didn't work that well. I didn't know there were birds or beasts. I didn't know that the sun was out, or that I should be concerned about lying in the forest by myself. I didn't know that I was naked, and that respectable people shouldn't be caught naked in the woods. I knew nothing but hot, blinding pain and cold. By the second day, my fingers weren't quite as stiff as they'd been that first day, and I wiggled them. I even was able to bend them and pick up a leaf and a stick that were on the ground near me. I ran my fingers along my own body. I tugged the threads that wove around my body parts, rough mosaic patterns that meant nothing to me but sharpness and pain and bright lights. For hours, I lay naked in the sun, tracing the threads around my neck, around my forehead, against my ears and my nose. I ran my hand along my torso and found my breasts too were woven with the threads. My legs all decorated with laborious stitches. The threads were crusty with blood and mud and a few bugs the birds had missed. I could do nothing but pick at the threads, pick at the mud with my clumsy fingers. Every time I pulled a clump of mud from my stitches, I felt a little bit better, a little bit lighter, a little bit more hopeful that things might work out. And soon somehow, I'd be able to piece together the mystery of who I was and why was I buried alive. I was too cold and stiff to move more than my hands, so they kept busy cleaning the stitches that were close enough to reach with my filthy fingers, while the birds circled and screamed above me. I didn't move much, but the wildlife around me certainly did. The flies constantly swarmed. By the third day, my dazed and confused numbness was wearing off. My body was less cold. However, the only problem with thawing out was the pain increased proportionately. I was very aware the day my heart began to beat at a steady, frequent pace. The tightness in my chest returned. The sharp, shooting pain turned numbness down my left arm. It was so strong that I jumped. As my heart beat faster, I jerked and spasmed, once again flopping around like a fish out of water. This time there was more feeling in my flesh, and every branch and stone pinched me with pain on contact. My heart grew steady, and I slowed down. I relaxed. Deep and steady breaths. I closed my eyes to the sun that was beating down on me. It peeked in over the treetops. And I listened to the sound of my own heart thumping against my chest. Seemed so loud to me, but perhaps that was because the woods had suddenly become very still. Even my body had stopped twitching. Somewhere, a branch snapped, and then another. As I was that day, I didn't have the sense to be frightened. I didn't even have the sense to know it was a branch snapping. On that day, it was just another noise I didn't recognize. Snap! At last, the white-hot pain subsided. The regular pain flooded my arm as the numbness dissipated. There was another snap. A large buck stepped into view. He stood majestically, his many-horned antlers gleaming in the sunlight. His dark eyes glimmered as he stared at me. I stared back, unable to move, not certain if I should, or what I would do if I could. The buck stared at me a while longer and walked away. I couldn't lift my head to see him go, but the snapping of twigs only continued on a little longer, and then I couldn't hear it anymore. On the morning of the fourth day, I woke up to a paw in my face. I opened my eyes and saw a wolf gazing down at me. His yellow eyes glowed in the rising sun, the morning dew still fresh on the ground. I was cold, but lay still. He sniffed at me, nudging me roughly along my body. He sighed deeply and then ran off into the woods. I moved my arms and legs more freely. This time I tried to sit up. It was slow, painful work, but at last I was able to do it. I sat up. My heart beat strongly, but not as painfully as before. My head ached, and I grew dizzy. Stitches in my neck felt as though they were ripping the skin from my body as agony surged through me. I reached up my hands to hold my head up. This gave great relief to the stitches. I was able to look around. The trees were thick and spread as far as I could see in all directions. Although patches of light shone through, much of the woods were dark. Squirrels dashed around, frantically gathering nuts. Above me, several birds were sitting on a nearby branch. They watched me looking at them. They began to caw, their tone critical and harsh. The sound was piercing to my ears, and I wished they would stop. At last, something caused them to take flight, and they flew away. The stress of sitting up was too much. So I lay back down. I rolled closer to a tree and lay in the crook of its roots. For a while, sleep soothed me until I woke again. I slept and woke in the safe comfort of the tree until the next day.